Recently this property was fitted with a brand new combi boiler, and that made the old heating system redundant. Originally we had a gas fire with a back boiler in here, so we've got a bit of work to do. What I want to do is hopefully insulate this fireplace area. There's a few copper pipes there. They're actually 1 inch. They fed the old heating system. I need to remove them because they're now redundant. And we do have a flue to deal with. That is actually drawing at the minute, I can feel it, so it's been doing a really good job of sucking the heat out of the room. So as the working angles are quite challenging, I'm going to be using an angle grinder to remove these pipes, and I'll spare you the noise. So that's the bulk of them out of the way. So we're reduced to just a hacksaw on the last one. The angle grinder would foul on this pipe, which has been blanked off as it's still got water flowing into it. So I've now got the pipes removed. I do actually get a bit impatient with that one. Inserted this screwdriver and just kept wiggling it till it fractured. So I'll reshape the flue. I'll just measure the flue actually. Yeah, it's in the region of 100 mil. And what I'm thinking about doing is blocking this flue up, but not totally. I want to leave like a small copper pipe in or something, just to give it a little trickle of air, just to ventilate this area. I've had a look around and there's very little guidance on this, other than blocking an open fire up, and that's not quite the case because this chimney has been modified to accept a gas flue. So out the insulation, the insulated plasterboard I have fashioned this plug. It's slightly tapered, so we can insert that in the flue, and I've cut the plasterboard off, so it's just a lump of insulation. But we can actually hear outside world noises through this, so it does need restricting, I would say. If I fold this in on itself, there's absolutely no danger of it falling out then. So what the plan is, and I'm going to be doing all this higher up, I've just got it lower down so I can show you, is to put a copper pipe in there. That's a 22 mil pipe, just to throttle it so we reduce the draw and the airflow, but it will actually leave some ventilation into this fireplace, which I believe is the correct thing to do. I don't want to totally seal it up and have any damp issues. So we've sealed all in there with some expanding foam, and the road noise I'm hearing has much reduced. So the difficulty is keeping the expanding foam gun upright. That's been the trickiest part so far, finding the working angle. So I'm now going to spend a good bit of time removing this excessive plaster. See, we've got a nice straight edge there. I can't really measure anything until I know what I'm dealing with. There is actually a good chunk of steel there to hold everything up, right? Just noticed that, so I'll just break little bits of excess plaster off, just so I can get a good edge to work to. I've actually found that an old panel saw is quite effective. It enables us just to go up the plaster and it'll either cut or rip off whatever is required. So now I've got some better edges to measure to, and we're slightly less than, we're about 515 mil. And I'll check it at the bottom too. I know about the brick to the right which is kicking out. So we may as well just aim for 520 by, I believe it's 560. So we'll cut the insulated plasterboard. This is actually quite easy to cut, this. Saw goes through it very easily. The problem is when you get near the end, you can easily break a corner or something, so I'm cutting it on the grass because it's so easy, it doesn't really matter if I dig this old saw into the lawn. This insulated plasterboard is actually foil backed, and when you cut it, it does get quite dusty. So just blow the. I'm just going to blow the dust off it before I walk it into the house. We're not too far off at that. It's just slightly needs a slight trim, and obviously we made no allowance for the brick on the right hand side that's kicking out, so we'll just tweak it slightly. Well, we're getting nearer with every step. I've had to cut it on this edge, and that kicks for the brick, and it's pretty good. It's more solid than I realised. But we'll be leaving a void behind it. I need to do something to hold everything in place so it just goes one way and doesn't budge. I'm still working on that. In a conventional blocking off job, we'd just have a wooden framework. I'm thinking of something a little different because I do have quite a lot of this insulated plasterboard. So I may be able to rustle something different up. So I've had a little think about it, and I think what I need is a wooden framework, maybe some timbers either side, and then we can run some more lats off of it, and that'll provide a good back for this plasterboard. But we need to be constantly allowing the space for everything to work. So we've got dimensions of 103mm on the plasterboard, then there's the thickness of the wood which is going to be screwed onto that. So we'll do a little thinking and break out the SDS drill. So that's the batten fixed on the easy side, and we're working to 130 to the end of the brickwork there, not the plaster. That should give us enough space for the timber batten and everything associated with it. So we've now got our framework in, and it's the same deal on the other side, but obviously a lot more complicated to work in. So we're using a bit of reclaimed timber because no one's really going to see it. So now we've got the framework secure, we're going to have a test fit. So the insulation plug fits in quite well, I think that's what I'll call it. And I think it's going in a little bit too deep. Maybe I need to build it this way a little. It just means there'll be more plastering to do and a greater depth of plaster, but it's not insurmountable. Now what I did originally think about is some screws all the way through there into the woodwork, but genuinely speaking, this feels so tight. I don't think I'm going to do it. I think I'm just going to keep it as a friction fit. So what I've done is I've built the job out slightly. I've got these spaces just to hold the plasterboard plug off the wall. Basically in here, you can't really see it, there's a brick like that which has upset the apple cart in terms of fixing this batten, so consequently that's why everything had to move back ever so slightly. So I've refitted the plasterboard plug, and I've got enough space just to touch in the plasterwork. It is a little loose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some expanding foam in these gaps, and then we'll see if it holds everything square. I do actually know, I've took the measurements of where the timbers are so that I can put screws in if necessary. For the benefit of my notes, it's 110mm up for the first timber and 60mm down for the upper timber. So I'm just filling the crack with expanding foam. I'm just being careful because it can expand a bit more than I actually want it to, and then that'll cause another job down the line. I'll work my way around this. So I've now gone full circle with the expanding foam. I didn't do the base as that is a plasterboard and it's a good fit. So I've now got the scrim to fit for the plastering finish, and I'm genuinely hoping the expanding foam will hold in. I'm going to fit the scrim in the hope that that will cure and hold everything steady. It's just moving ever so slightly at the minute, but I think as the expanding foam gets more rigid, it will hold this board in, and we can avoid putting any screws in, because I don't really want to do that, because this is a big insulator and we're going to put a steel conductor through it. So if I can avoid it, great. If not, we'll do it. Scrim done now. It is actually adhesive, this scrim, so it sticks in place, which is a massive improvement. And I've just been scratching away at a bit of wallpaper, just painstakingly remove it, because when we get to round to the plastering stage, this is going to be in the way. Anyway, the main thing is this is now rock solid, so we've totally avoided, it's just a bit of slight movement, but it's solidifying by the minute, so we've totally avoided putting any ironmongery in it, which will weaken this panel's efficiency. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some plaster. I've chosen Thistle multi-finish. I will warn you now, I am not a plasterer by trade. I'm just winging it. One thing I've never done before is attempted to mix plaster with a float and a bucket. I've done plenty of sand and cement in my time, but this is new. It's surprising how much water this stuff requires. Well, I'm hoping that's adequately mixed. I have to get to the bottom of a bucket and scrape round. I will warn you now, I am not the best plasterer. So that's the first couple of passes on. It's just a case of me chucking it at the wall to start with. I'll try and work it in the gap. So we've got the fireplace covered, and if you want to learn how to plaster, please find a plastering channel. You're not going to learn that here. The question is, can I turn this into something good using some tips I've had? You know, use a spray bottle, wet it down, etc. We'll find out. So I'll give it a good wet down, see if that helps matters. Plenty of water is what I'm told. Yeah, it's definitely smoother. Oh, there's a dribble. Yep, I'll continue at that rate. Well, that is my best plastering effort. It's far from perfect, but we have got one insulated fireplace now. So if you need anything plastering, don't ask me to do it. I wish I'd have phoned a friend. So why not like and subscribe for more repair possibilities, except plastering.